Take your marks.
You're listening to the Pool Boy Podcast.
Hello, welcome back to the Pool Boy Podcast for our next episode of 2025. Steve here, and I'm joined once again by Katie, and delighted to welcome back Bob. He's been busy talking about other non-water-based sports. Bob, great to have you back with us.
I'm indeed, Steve, away from the basketball court and back into the pool again.
No, should be a good one. We are looking forward to the forthcoming British Championships, which also function as the trials for this summer's World Championships in Singapore. There's bound to be some exciting swimming in London, Katie. You're looking forward to seeing how people have bounced back from their Paris exploits and who might come through?
Yeah, I think so. It's a funny year, the year after the Olympics. A lot of people coming off a big break and a few people have retired. So I guess that seems opens up some opportunities for some new people to come through or some people to step up. So it should be good.
I mean, we've lost a few swimmers to retirement, Bob. Anna Hopkin, Brodie Williams, one or two others who I can't remember right now. But it feels to me like...
Andrew Jervis.
Oh, yes, there's another one. Toby Robinson as well, I think. So there's a few who've hung up their goggles, but it feels like we've got a fair crop who are coming back.
And of the names that have remained, there's a few that I thought may not, like James Guy, for example. I mean, I think James back in the World Championships in 2013. Another 4-year cycle. Is he committed to another 4-year cycle? It would appear that he is. New location for him as well with his previous coach. So good to see him going. Obviously, Duncan's going to keep going for another 4 years as well. So, there's a bit of familiarity, but some new guns who are aiming to try and take them down as best they can.
Well, indeed. Well, some of the people who did well in Paris, mainly the medalists in the individual events and the guys who swam the final of the 4x200 are pre-selected for the World Championships, which means Duncan in the 200 IM, Matt in the 200 free, Ben Proud in the 50 free are all pre-selected. Katie, that's bound to have an impact on some of their preparation for this meet. I mean, we know Duncan took a bit of a break. He told us that when we spoke to him earlier in the year. Tom has come off the biggest break he's ever had. He's obviously pre-selected for that relay along with James, but that must have an impact on how some people will be approaching this meet.
Yeah, I don't know whether they would have done anything differently if they hadn't been pre-selected, because a lot of people just need that big break after the Olympics and might just decide, look, if I don't have a stellar year that year, I'm the prize is in 4 years' time, and just to give themselves that time to rest. But it's interesting. We haven't seen a pre-selection event for quite a long time, I don't think. It's something we used to do quite a lot, and I don't think we've done so much in recent years. But it does mean that they can relax a bit at the trials. This isn't the be-all, end-all of selection as it normally is. So, yeah, they may not rest. We might not see some times that are as fast as we might otherwise expect. But for that very small group of swimmers, that's it's not a big deal.
Well, indeed. Well, one of the other swimmers who was pre-selected, who I didn't mention there, was Adam Peaty, obviously silver in 100 breaststroke in Paris. He did move training base to Repton, he announced, but he's not entered for these trials, which I don't think really is a big surprise to anyone, given his reaction after his race in Paris. But that does mean events up on the first day. Bob, men's 100 breaststroke, no Adam Peaty, no James Wilby either. He's taking a break, reportedly plans to go on till the Commonwealth Games in 26 before calling it a day. But that means we're like to see a new name in that event, and it's a little bit exciting to see who can step it up.
Well, somebody's going to have to, because, we don't know what Adam's going to be doing in the next 4-year period. He's got other interests now. He's got his swim clinic, etc., etc. So step forward, hopefully, Max Morgan. It worries me, has worried me for a while. We've talked about it on here many times, that, right, fantastic to have Adam as high profile as he has been over the last 3 Olympic cycles, but where's the next one coming from? And Max Morgan at the moment hasn't done a sub 60 in terms of his qualification time anyway. So he's going to have to find a bit of time. I imagine he'll be red hot favourite for the 100 and probably for the 50 as well when it comes to those events in London. But big big shoes to fill for Max Morgan. And what's he, 17 years of age? Early stages for him.
Well, he needs to, he's at 60.1 on his entry time. He needs to find 59.65 to make the qualification time. The fastest qualifier, though, Archie Goodburn, 60.03. He's been around a little while. Katie obviously had that terrible health scare last year, but is still going strong, it seems. Good opportunity for him to kind of step up and fill that gap as well.
Yeah, and I think, looking forward to next year as well. He's got, hopefully, his Commonwealth Games, another home Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, which is great. It would be, I think it's going to be really tight. We've got 3 guys who are on 60 low. Again, I agree that Max is probably the one who's most likely to make that drop, just given his rate of improvement and his age. But I suppose, we don't actually know if Adam's going to swim this summer, do we? He's pre-selected, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to take up his spot. And I don't know, I don't think any of us know what he's doing in terms of training at the moment. So there's potentially 2 spots available, I guess. We'll see.
Indeed.
We shouldn't overlook Greg Butler because he's been in and around teams, hasn't he, for the last couple of years?
Yeah, maybe more for the 200. He's been picked, but certainly it's somebody that the selectors have liked. Maybe this is his chance, as you say, to step out of the shadows in the 100-metre event. But it should be a good race. They're all very close, those 3. Filip Nowaczki just a little bit further back as the 4th fastest qualifier. He was a bit of a breakout last year as well. So, we'll look forward to a good race on that one on the first day. Also, first day, Katie, women's 200 free. Always generates some good racing. Hopefully we'll see Freya Anderson coming back to her best after her health issues last year as well.
Yeah, and I think Freya's moved training race as well and is now up in Stirling, and hopefully is sort of happy there and back to full fitness. And so it might be a battle of a couple of Freyas at the top of that 200 free, but we've also got Abby Wood in there. It's a pretty stacked field. I was hoping we were going to see Katie Shanahan in there because she did say she was looking forward to maybe taking up that as one of her new events, but I think her interests are elsewhere at the moment.
Well, it was a very encouraging 200 free from those ladies at the Edinburgh International Meet a few weeks ago. So I think that's another one to keep an eye on. Should be some good racing there to get that top 4 for the relay and the top 2 spots for Singapore. But I think there's a few people who can go the time. What do they need? It's a 1:56.6. So you'd like to think there's maybe 2 or 3 of them who could make that standard, and that should make for a good battle to get those top 2 spots for that one. Let's move on to what's going on the second day. Men's 200 fly. Now, this is interesting for a couple of reasons. Josh Gammon leading the way. He's been there or thereabouts for a little while in terms of getting selection. But just behind him, you mentioned James Guy already, Bob. He's gone back to another of his old events, and we'll talk about the 400 freestyle in a minute, I'm sure. He's swimming along with Duncan Scott. So it's interesting to see those 2 branching out.
Yeah, and 4 under 2 minutes with Tom Beasley as well. Jimmy, he reinvents himself. He came through in the 400 free, remember, at the World Championships, winning the medal in the 400 free. He's mixed things up. He's had the 100 fly, he's had the 200 fly, he's had the 200 free, it seems to be what I like about Jimmy is, and I have done over the years, he loves to challenge himself. He doesn't want to go down the predictable route and I'll do this year and I'll do the same thing next year. He gets maybe a bit bored with an event, wants to reinvent himself, wants to come back to the events he felt most comfortable with when he initially set out on this international path. So good to see him do that. He's going to have to drop quite a bit of time though in the 400 free to get close to a qualification time.
Well, I spoke to him about his return to the 400 just recently, and you can find that interview on Poolboy. I'll put a link in the description. He needs 3:45.43 to qualify. Obviously, the fastest entrant is Kieran Bird, who was there or thereabouts on that time last year and went to the Olympics in the 400 free. But Katie, he was adamant he was going to get back to his best, which would be the British record at 3:43. But he swam that in 2015. The event's moved on quite a lot in the interim. I think that would have ranked him, 15th in the world or something last year. So getting back to his best is one thing. If he wants to be competitive, he'll have to get better than his best. Yeah,
and I think, you would typically say that doing that later on in your career is quite a tough ask. But, there's a lot of things that we've thought of Jimmy that would be a bit of a tough ask, and he's kind of stood up to it every time. So, if he says he thinks he can do it, he probably can. I just think as a nation, we probably need to move on in that event, to be honest now, because we are lagging behind a bit. I'd love to see him get back to his best and better. But I think it's going to have to be a big shift if we're going to be kind of looking at getting into finals and getting on the podium in that event.
Sorry about bringing the old record out. The 4:8:15 still concerns me.
Well, yes. I mean, the distance free. You know, you mentioned Dan Jervis had hung up his goggles. It's a bit thin with him and Toby out of the picture now. I think the 4. I'm interested to see what Kieran can do. I think he took a lot of confidence from what happened last year in Paris. You know, and his swim at trials, because he'd been on a bit of a plateau before then. So maybe he's got a drop in him. But both of those guys, or whoever, you know, takes that forward, has got some work to do to be competitive on the world stage for sure. Let's bring it back to the second day. Women's 400 IM goes without Katie Shanahan, but it does include a certain Abby Wood, who was very fast earlier this year. 4:38 for her was her third fastest ever. I think that was at the Bucks or Edinburgh, I can't remember which, but encouraging to see her back in that event, really.
Yeah, really. I mean, I can't really remember the Abby Wood long course 400 IM era. I don't. Has it been a thing? I'm not sure, but it's great to see her in it. Not for a long time. I think, for whatever reason, and I don't think we're clear on this, she has moved away from the breaststroke, which was her very strong second event, but it does put a hell of a lot of pressure on that 200 IM, and that is such a competitive event on the world stage now, and the 400 probably is the one where, you know, there are more opportunities, because the second and third spot, I think, they're not sewn up. So I think it is good to see her back in there, and she's already done a brilliant performance this year, so it'll be good to see what she can do, maybe with a bit of a rest.
One of the benefits of doing the Northeast Counties stuff that I have done for the last couple of years, watching some of those from Yorkshire and the Northeast come through, Matilda Potter is one to watch out for. I know she's about 10 seconds off the mix at the moment, but I think she might drop some time this time.
It's always nice to see the youngsters coming through. Amelie Smith, the third fastest entrant, she's another one. She's dropped a massive amount of time this year to get to 4:41. I mean, I think it's a stretch to suggest she's going to make the World Championship team, but it'd be good to see her get into the 4:30s, and I'm sure she'll have her eyes on sort of European juniors qualification in that event as well. Let's jump over to the men bob. That event follows straight on. Class of the field, definitely one Max Litchfield. I'm sure you'll be looking forward to seeing him swim again.
Well, I am, but the problem is he's not going to be challenged again, is he? This is the issue with that race and that competition is Charlie Hutchison is 6 seconds shy of him. Max, if he's on form, will win that by quite some distance. And I'd rather see, and I'm sure he would rather see himself being challenged, but it's going to be pretty much Max against the clock, isn't it?
I would say so. I mean, 4:11.9 for qualification should be straightforward for him. I guess it's whether he's in the form to give the British record he set last year a bash. I mean, he set a British record at trials last year, obviously, 4:09 low, and then dropped it again in Paris. I think possibly he won't be quite in that shape this early in 2025. But yeah, I think he's on for the qualification and the win, barring something dramatic. But interesting to see if one of the guys behind him can get down to the time they need as well. Quick word about the women's 100 backstroke. No Meddy Harris, she's sitting this out, but we do have Katie Shanahan. Katie, she did tell us she was thinking about the 100 backstroke when we spoke to her before the Olympics last year. She's dropped the 400 IM in favour of that. Fourth fastest entrant at 60.7. Lauren Cox leading the way 59.6, just ahead of Kathleen Dawson and Hani Osrin. It could be a bit of a battle, that one, but interesting to see what Katie can do.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I would have thought it wouldn't have a lot of pressure for her. Her entry suggests that she's had a lot more focus on backstroke this year. She obviously really enjoys it from when we've spoken to her before. So, and you know, again, we don't have a standout backstroker at the moment. It's all been, even last year, it was all quite bunched up. You know, at the moment, Lauren Cox is probably the favourite, but we haven't seen Katie put together a rested 100 backstroke. So I'll be really interested to see what she can do.
Well, she'll need to get into that sub 60 range if she's going to be hoping to swim that in Singapore. She would need a 59.4, so it'd be a big drop from where she's entered, and indeed a PB for Lauren as well if she was going to do it. Kathleen, obviously in her heyday, has been way beyond that standard, but not quite back to where we saw her in 2021. But a good racing prospect there, I should think, and we'll wait to see what Katie can do. Let's keep it moving. We'll go on to the third day, and the first chance to see in one of her main events, and Harrod Evans. She's going in the 200 metres breaststroke. She told us, Katie, earlier in the year that that's an event she's going to put a bit more focus on for this season. She's already done a huge PB, 2:22.6, Edinburgh or Bucks, I think, which now she's declared for Scotland is a Scottish record, took out Kirsty Balfour's record from 2006. And I think she's got a lot of upside in that event.
Yeah, I think she's so new to it. She's dropping loads of time. I also think it's another event where there's opportunities. Tatiana Smith's retired, I think. I would say there's one standout USA swimmer, which is Kate Douglas, obviously the Olympic champion. But beyond that, I mean, I have to say I'm unclear on what the status of various Russians is. I think the Russians are back for this one, or the very best Russian on the 200 breaststroke is back this year. That's my understanding, but I might be wrong. But I mean, if she keeps dropping like she has been, she'd be right up there.
No, well, lots of potential. I don't think she really knew what she was capable of, and certainly I don't think we've seen it yet. So it'll be interesting to see what she does. That event comes right before the men's 100 backstroke, which, Bob, has got a lot of excitement around it. Ollie Morgan's already gone 52.71, which is only 1/100th off his British record at Bucks a few months ago. Jonathan Marshall has just swum an incredibly good NC2A Championships, the second fastest 100-yard backstroke of all time, swimming for Florida. Luke Greenbank is hanging around there, maybe better in the 200, but those top two should be tasty.
Yes, I think so. Ollie can't take it for granted. The last couple of years he pretty much could. He knew he was the outstanding backstroker in this country, certainly at that distance anyway. And Johnny Marshall is now breathing down his neck. There's 3/10 between them on entry time. As you mentioned, great background for Marshall in the States. I think that could be a really good head-to-head. That actually might be one of the races of the week.
I think I would agree.
I think it'd be interesting to see what kind of form Luke Greenback's in. I suppose he's probably one of the ones that I was maybe a bit surprised that he carried on, but obviously had a really tough time in Paris and probably didn't want to leave it there. But new coach, Mel Marshall's gone, so it'll be interesting to see kind of where he is.
Indeed. I mean, I think obviously we know him much more as a 200 swimmer, but as you say, there's been a bit of a reorganisation at Loughborough with Mel moving on. Dave Hemmings has taken over the squad as a whole. And while we're on that topic, what I was interested to see is the impact of some of the other people who've moved centres. Obviously, Aquatics GB has their new centre in Manchester, which is the combined centre with the para group that's there, which is headed up by Ryan Livingston. He moved up from Millfield, took Matt Richards, James Guy, Emily Richards with him from there. But four swimmers who I spotted who've moved into that group, Leah Schlossen, Ed Mildred, Evan Jones and Lewis Burris, who've all come out of other performance centres, in three cases at the Leeds programme in Leah's case. It'd be interesting case to see how they react to new coach. He obviously did wonders with Matt and James last year, the year before, and obviously for Leah actually being in the performance centre environment, whether that suits her or not.
Yeah, I think it will be really interesting, actually. I mean, I don't know much about Ryan as a coach, but he looks like he's had brilliant success. And whenever we've spoken to Matt or James over the last few years, they've sounded incredibly happy and motivated, which I think is just such a good sign. So hopefully that can be a good positive change for some of the others who I think have, tried a few different centres and not found it entirely easy. So fingers crossed for a good change. So it would be nice to see Lewis Burris back to his best.
Indeed it would, and that would be great news for the 4x1 relay if he is back to his best. Bob, that one's coming up on the same day. Matt leading the way. Yep. Tom Dean, we've spoken about, took a bit of a break after Paris. It's the only event he's swimming. I'm interested to see how Alex Cahoon moves things on, because he was a a bit of a find last year for me. And then Alex Painter, another one who's had an excellent NC2A season for Florida, just lurking as well. So, that could be a good race.
And don't forget Jacob Whittle either. Jacob has been there or thereabouts, burst on the scene very early on, and hasn't yet at international level, I don't think, quite replicated what we'd hoped for from him. So he's very much in the mix. We'll want to be part of the 6 if they choose 6 for the 4x1. So again, that's wide open. But you wouldn't bet against Matt Richards off the back of last year, would you?
I don't think so. So I think he's the one to beat there for sure. Just skipped over Katie, the women's 50 No Anna Hopkins, she's called it a day, but exciting to see what Eva Akara can do. She had a great short course season, obviously. World junior record in the 53 at the World Short Course. Going here long course. Chance for a good time from her?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm interested in seeing what she does. She's entered in quite a few events. So 150 and 100 free we're most used to seeing her in, and there's now obviously a chance to step up and hopefully take that spot in the medley relay now. Anna Hopkins moved on, but she's also entered in the 100 fly, which she swam in the relay at World Short Course where they ended up medaling. And I feel like that's a kind of untapped event for her. I wouldn't be surprised to see her come out kind of, top 3 in that, because she drops so much time short course. So I think she's a really exciting person to watch off to the States next year to Texas, which will be interesting to see. But yeah, it will be good to see her move it on in the freestyle and the fly. It would be really good to see a 53 in that 100 free.
It certainly would. That comes up on the last day of the meet, so a chance for her to drop that to round off her week. I'm sure that will be a competitive event as well, though. Let's keep moving through the events. Men's 200 IM comes up on the 4th day. Duncan Scott. He swum the 200 fly earlier in the meet as a chance to presumably get a swim in earlier in the competition. What with the IM and the 200 free coming at the back end. He's the class of the field. Again, long way clear, Bob. He's pre-selected. He doesn't have anything to prove, but he's the kind of person that he'll turn up and he'll swim well.
He will, because I've never seen him do anything other than go flat out. He's not a 90% swim merchant. He'll give 100% all big events. He's right in there. And, of course, they're all working towards that Commonwealth Games for next year, which is very, very important to him as well. So he's not going to have a year where he's going to take it easy, because he wants to kind of build into not just the World Champs this year, but the Commonwealth Games next year.
So, okay, behind him, Charlie Hutchison, Evan Jones. We've just spoken about Evan having moved to Manchester. They've got big drops to make it to Singapore. They might have more of an eye on a European under-23 team for later in the year, but we will see how those two can go. Women's 200 back comes up next, Katie, and we've got Katie Shanahan and Honey Osrin, the two ladies who made the Olympic final last year, heading the way. I'm really interested to see how Holly McGill can go, though. She was really promising last year, making big drops of time coming out of Stirling. So should be a good race.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think she's beaten Katie Shanahan every time they've raced it this year. Like every time I've looked at every result that I've noticed, it's been Holly coming out on top. Now, obviously, people react differently to kind of in-season training and when they're rested, but I think that could be a really good race. Sorry for my ignorance, is Freya Colbert swimming that, or is she giving this one a rest at
No, she is swimming that. She's swimming that instead of the 200 IM.
She is. It's interesting how there seems to suddenly be quite a lot of focus on that event. Freya Colbert's got quite an interesting lineup. She's also in the 100 free. She's doing the 200 back, so she's obviously looking at some different events as well, which is interesting, and I'm sure annoying for everyone who's a specialist in one of those events, because she tends to be pretty good at whatever she turns her hand to.
So I'm also interested in, Steve, is seeing quite a few of these Chelsea and Westminster swimmers creeping into the top 8 or 9 in the rankings at the moment.
Yes, I mean they're a club that's up and coming. I think it's Lisa Bates, head coach there at the moment. They've got a certain Ben Proud on their squad at the moment as well, so I'm sure he is a good addition for them. But yeah, a club to keep an eye on, certainly, across that week. Let's move on to the Saturday, so the 5th day of the competition, and the women's 100 fly comes up first. Kiana McInnes, Katie, was the champion last year. She did lifetime best in Paris. She was just ahead of her Sterling teammate, Lucy Grieve, last year, 58.3 for her. She's another one, rather like Holly McGill, who's kind of on an upward curve and maybe one to watch for an upset in this event.
Yeah, I think we've kind of chatted about Lucy Grieve quite a lot, I think, Steve, because I think she's had some really interesting results and she seems to be dropping a lot of time. I think that, it's another one that could be really close. I've already mentioned that Eva's in there as well. We need to move that event on, don't we, in GB generally. We've been stuck around that kind of 58 or 57 high mark for quite a long time, and it's great, but it's not going to cut it on the world stage. So I would really like to see someone break out and move that on.
Well, maybe this is the year for that. Someone else who'll be looking to move an event on, men's 200 breaststroke. We've already mentioned Greg Butler. Bob, I think this is his better event. He needs to find about a second, but Max Morgan, Filip Nowaczki sitting behind him, a couple of seconds back, but maybe with more momentum, being young. One for Greg, or do you think the youngsters might get him?
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen enough of Max, if I haven't seen Max in the flesh at all yet, to see what his best event is. Is it going to be the 100? Because unlike PT, PT dropped the 200 pretty much straight away. He's doing the 50, the 100 and the 200. So do we yet know at the age of 17 what his best event is?
Well, this week will maybe give us a bit of a clue, won't it? But yeah.
I wonder if Oscar Bilbao is going to be in there too, because he's a PT teammate. Not too far off the rankings.
Yeah, he's coming from a long way back on the clock, but who never say never, obviously. People do drop time, don't they? So keep an eye out for him.
So 19 as well.
Yeah. Men's 53. Ben Proud, we just mentioned, now of Chelsea and Westminster, but I think probably still doing much of his training in Turkey. He got his Olympic medal last year, Bob, so maybe, taking it, not easy, that's the wrong word for it, but maybe a bit more relaxed about what's happening this year. Yeah,
I mean, that's a big monkey off his back. And, he's done very well at European, world and Commies level, so he's got the set now, pretty much. But Matt Richards, we know how keen he was to do the 50 at trials last year. Didn't get a chance to do it later in the year, but he still feels he's a bit of a speed merchant, and maybe we'll find that out in a week's time or so.
Yeah, I think if he gets the opportunity, he'd want to do all three of those races, 50, 100, 200. But there's some speedy people around him, so he won't have it all his own way to get that second spot behind Ben. I think the qualification time is 21.88 is within a few people's reach, so could be a blanket finish, but probably Ben for the win. We mentioned the 200M earlier, goes without Freya Colbert, Katie, but we have Abby Wood, Katie Shanahan, Leah Schlossen, who we've talked about in the context of that Manchester Performance Centre, and Phoebe Cooper heading the way. Be nice to see Abby put on a bit of a show and drop a good time, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what it is. You can't help but root for Abby Wood, really. She just seems like a general good egg, and it was so good to see, a fair way through her career, having such a good year last year. So I'd just like to see that continue. She seemed so happy last year, and it would just be nice to see that carry on.
All right, let's move on to the last day then of the competition. Men's 200 backstroke. One of the first events up. We've spoken about Ollie Morgan already. We've spoken about Luke Greenbank already, and we've spoken about Johnny Marshall already. But those three will cross swords again, probably between Luke and Ollie. Bob, you would think.
Don't overlook Cam Brooker on that. Yeah, don't overlook Cam Brooker on that one either, because I think he's a man on a mission. So I think Cam could well be in the mix on that one.
Okay,
I think somebody wants to get him. He is a way off, but I think from what I hear, soundings are that he's had some very good training and is pretty well set to at least push them. I mean, Luke, we don't know how he's going to be off those, as Katie was mentioning, off the back of last year. Ollie, I'm sure, will be revved up and raring to go. But yeah, we know that trials and championships aren't always as straightforward as they look on paper. I think there might be a little bit of a shake-up there.
Well, it was one of the best races of trials last year, so hopefully those two can put that sort of race on again.
By the way, can I just interject? I know you want to move on, but you've overlooked one person who I think we need to see whether he's bounced back from last year or not. That's Jacob Peters.
Yes, that is a fair point. He had a bit of a shocker at trials last year after a decent heat, and just all went wrong for him in the final. But he heads the way in the 100 fly in the entrance for that, which comes a bit earlier in the week.
And the 50 as well. He's fastest going into the 50, yeah.
He's got a certain Ben Proud behind him on that one, though. But it's interesting to see how that one goes. But it's important that James Guy is not swimming the 100 fly. So it'll be important for Jacob or maybe Josh Gammon or even Joe Litchfield, who won it last year, of course, to post a good time in that 100 fly event to get the medley relay qualified for Singapore. But yeah, no, it's a fair point that we should just see how Jacob has put himself back together after that disappointment last year. Women's 100 breaststroke, Katie, we've spoken about Anne Harrod already. We asked her about what time she was aiming for when we spoke to her earlier in the year, and she didn't really want to say, and that's fair enough. But then she kind of let slip that she had a 104 in her mind. So maybe not this week, maybe later in the year, but British record perhaps?
I think so. I mean, I don't know. I guess you don't know where anyone is, but she wants to qualify for her first long course world championships. She seems like she's in great form. I think she's in better form. It looks like she's in better form than she was this time last year. So, it feels like it should be a real possibility. You definitely can't miss Scotland at the top of that 100 breaststroke, can you? It's all Scotland.
Yes, indeed. I think the big difference for me will be that she will probably feel a lot less nervous than she did last year. I mean, she's had that full season. Did okay at trials, did well at the Olympics, did well at World Short Course, and probably feels a bit more that this is her arena, if you like. So she knows that the qualification time will be in relative terms straightforward for her, so it's all about putting her own performance together and not worrying about actually qualifying. And I think that could be a big difference just on the mental side for her. So I'm really looking forward to that race. I think that should be good. That's a race that's got just a little way back Theodora Taylor, 16-year-old from Torfen Dolphins over in Wales. She goes again in the next race, the 100 free as well, unless she opts to drop one. I know she's a swimmer that you've been keeping an eye on, Katie.
I just think it's an interesting combination, mostly because I couldn't swim breaststroke to save my life. And she's right up there in both events. She's really young. I think there are opportunities if they're going to take a women's 4x1 for her to maybe get a spot there. So yeah, and you also can't miss a name. It's not the most common name. So seeing her up there in both events is interesting and exciting, because it's always good to have younger people coming through and seeing what the next generation is going to look like for us.
Indeed. And there's a few like her in that 100 free, Holly Widows, Sky Carter, who are kind of on the cusp of that top echelon, if you like. So it'll be interesting to see if any of those can move it forward. The top four: Eva Riccara, Freya Anderson, Abby Wood, Lucy Hope, and then Freya Colbert in there as well. So it's a bit of a mixture of pure freestylers with Eva and Freya, and some multi-eventers with Abby and the other Freya. But there's some potential in there, and hopefully Eva can get herself under that 54-second barrier in that event, which would be lovely. And that's we're going to leave the men's 200 free for a second, because we just want to touch on the women's 800 free. And I know we've talked about Emily Bloxage for a number of years, because she's the kind of coming swimmer in that event. Fastest qualifier again. Should be a good race between her and Fleur Lewis. She's got to drop 5 seconds, I think it is, to make the selection time 8:25.84. I feel, Bob, though, that even if she doesn't make that, if she swims well, there's more opportunity that the selectors might take her to Singapore anyway.
Well, it's funny you say we've been talking about her for years. She's 16, so it's amazing, isn't it, that we talked about her for a long, long time, and she's only 16. I thought she really responded well last year. She was just outside what she needed and didn't quite do a PB at the Olympic trials last year. But again, she seemed to relish the occasion. She seemed to love the whole ambience of the thing. I think that now she's got that one under her belt, she won't be fazed by the championships this year. I think she'll go well inside 8:30, which she's entered in on. I expect her to win it, and I expect her to do pretty well in both the 8 and the 15 next week.
Indeed. Katie, if she were to swim, I don't know, 8:27, say, or 8:28, so a lifetime best, but not as fast as the qualification time, would you pick her?
I think I probably would at this stage. I think she'll have to be pretty close. I don't think there's probably not much point in taking her if she's sort of miles out. And I'd probably say, well, she's moving in the right direction. Let's give it another year and then give her that benefit of the doubt spot. But if she's closing in on that qualification time and doing a time that's competitive, which I think an 8:27 would be, then I think it's worth a shot.
Well, she had her senior international debut at World Short Course, so she's got that experience to draw on as well. Be interesting to see how she gets on in London. But I mentioned it and then left it, and then we'll jump back to it. The curtain closer, as ever, is that men's 200 metres freestyle. Bob, would you like to pin your colours to the mast as to who's going to win?
Yes, I would, but I also want to talk about the double-barreled boys as well, because I think it could be a real breakthrough event for both of them, for Melbourne Smith and for Rowbottom Keating. Both now at Loughborough, both, I think, ready for a big breakout this year. I think it's going to come in London next week. I'm absolutely certain that Matthew Richards is going to win it.
Katie, do you agree?
I do. I never like betting against Duncan Scott, but the last few times they've been head-to-head, it is Matt that's come out on top. So I'm going to go with Matt. I
can't really argue against that. I mean, I wouldn't put it past Duncan, but I think I'm leaning towards Matt. I am most interested, though, to see how Jack McMillan goes. He was 145.5, I think, in the relay heats in Paris. He was 146.1 trials last year. I think there's a 145 in him from a flat start. I'm really hoping that he can jump into that time range as well. So he might surprise a few people as well, because don't think he's had as much of a break. So I'd like to see him get that 145 to close the weekend.
The weird thing is, I was looking back, and Ed Mildred, I think, is only about the 17th fastest going into the heats of that.
Yeah, he's a long way back, isn't he? But maybe the Ryan Livingston magic will make all the difference for him. Who knows? We will see. All right. Well, it's. I think that's a good time to draw this little preview to a close. There's plenty of action coming in London. We'll be there for some of that week to speak to some of the swimmers, and hopefully we'll hear some of that after the championships. Katie, Bob, thank you very much for your thoughts. It's always great to chat.
Thank you for having us.
So as I say, we'll be back after those championships with a bit of a roundup, hopefully with some chats with a few of the swimmers who have competed. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch, it's at Poolboy on X or at Poolboy UK on Instagram, poolboy.co.uk/contact if you want to drop me an email. I'll pop that interview with James Guy, the link in the show notes. But until we're back with you, thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Poolboy Podcast. For more episodes, visit www.poolboy.co.uk/podcast.